Parshas Vaeyra. We reach Parshas Vaeyra, Baruch Hashem. Could it contain elements of what? No. Stop. I'm going to start again. Parshas Vaeyra. The 11th plague. What do I mean by that? If we go back to Bereshis, as Hashem alludes to at the beginning of Vaeyra, Vaydaber Elohim el Moshe, one of the 72 connotations or names of God, Vayomer Elov Ani Adonai, Elohim Adonai. Va'era el Avraham Yitzchak v'el Yaakov be'el Shaddai, u'shemi Adonai lo nodati lohem. So the obvious question is, how many names does God have? And what does each name represent? And what level of manifestation of His holiness does God show us? Well, this has a lot of Kabbalah, a lot of Zohar, almost an extremely impossible area of study, because you're dealing with the essence, as far as we can begin minutely to understand, of God. That's impossible for us to understand. But God gives us hints. God shows us in the Torah His various, you'll forgive the expression, but for the lack of a better word, His various moods. He's angry, He's happy, He's just, He's kind. These are all manifestations of God. Each, which according to Kabbalah of the 72, when combined, you have the essence of what we're able to, or what we think we're able to understand of what is God. We thought, or actually we didn't really think about it, but God is God, which is true. But He reveals Himself differently to the Avot, to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the Nevi'im. It's according to the degree of how much that particular person can absorb, can obtain. Moshe, the highest of the Nevi'im, was able to understand, accept, comprehend Ushemi Adonai. My name is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Moshe was able to understand what that meant. We are now in the midst of a worldwide killer plague. And we hear from the worldwide experts, not mentioning names, we're going to try with this vaccine, with this cure, the cause for the virus is in some laboratory. We're getting all kinds of biological, chemical, scientific reasons. And of course, the solution becomes what the world thinks is obvious. You need a biological, chemical, virological, serological refuah, cure. but it's not working. Because as we inoculate with one vaccine, along comes another, what they call variant, because you're afraid to call it mutation. Mutation is horrible sounding. So along comes another variant. So we're going to go from vaccine to vaccine, from vaccine shot to vaccine shot, and some geniuses, and I respect medicine and I respect science for what they're able to deliver, but no one in the past few years of what I've seen, or someone of repute, has said, world, wait a second, there is another dimension that we're supposed to live in as human beings. There is a spiritual, moral world which since World War II has disintegrated. I had a professor, Rabbi Dr. Moshe Carmilli, who said it very clearly back in the mid-1960s. With the rise of Nazism, morality is finished in the world. There is no more morality. There can be no more morality. How prophetic his words were, how sharp his diagnosis was. Let me read something to you from the Art Scroll Chumash Shemos, right at the beginning of Parshas Vaeyra, on page 319. I will read the English commentary. God has revealed himself to them only with his other name, El Shaddai. That's referring to the Avot. The latter name derives from the word dai, sufficient, and denotes God as the one who sets limits on creation. Follow this. This is very important because it uses the word limits. We live in a time where there are no limits. Again, God as the one who sets limits on creation by establishing the laws of nature, the limitations within which the universe functions. The universe cannot function without these limitations. Now, these limitations are called morals, they're called commandments, they're called mitzvahs lo saseh, they're called the 7 mitzvahs of the children of Noah. There are limitations on human activity, human action, human research, human biology. To contravene this, to explain this away, violates the laws of God, violates the law of nature. You cannot make a male into a female. You cannot make a female into a male. All right? Science says you can. Torah says you can't. Well, on this one, as on everyone, go with God. That's the right answer. Okay? If people have a problem with how they're born, that is more of a psychological issue. It's not to change the word around. Homosexuality, lesbianism, all was condemned from the beginning of time. The Torah calls it a toeva. Not me, the Torah. And I try to follow. This world, this decadent world, because all it is a protest or hedonistic, is trying to legitimize the illegitimate. It's trying to bring the pig into the Beis HaMikdash and to say it's kosher. And it's pushing civil society to pass laws of that nature. Bathrooms, kol dich fin yesei v'yeichal, everybody could come in, enjoy, have a good time. This is not morality. This is not the world. This is not the lines that Hashem, God, holy God, creator of everything, made for us in order to exist and survive as a people, as a nation, as a civilization, as a world. Ripping down old statues, ripping down old foundations that kept the world going. This is the new way. The Or HaChaim, continuing with the Art Scroll, comments that God's essence is represented by the name Hashem. Even though the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, knew that name, only Moshe, only Moses, had the degree of prophecy that enabled him to comprehend its significance to the highest degree possible for a man. God spoke directly to Moshe. To all the other great Nevi'im, he spoke either through a dream or, hard to explain, they received some kind of message in the head, telepathic, whatever you want to call it. Moshe had the highest degree of prophecy. Now let's take a look. If we look back at the last century, God has been sending us messages. There's not an Indian here of Hester Panim. God is not hiding from us. He's not closing his face to us. He's not turning it away from us. He's sending us messages. What do you think these are? These are invitations to a birthday party. These are signals. These are messages. And each one gets worse. Each one gets more intense. The more intense it gets, the more intense the groups advocating this new perversion, the more powerful they get. That is the power of the Yetzer Hara, of the Satan, of evil. And what I'm bemoaning, a little bit off my regular mahalach of trying just to teach psukim in the Torah, what I'm bemoaning is the fact that there isn't anybody, and I'll limit it to the Jewish community, although this latest 11th plague that I would call, it's not just in the Jewish community, of course, it's worldwide. We are a member of the world, whether they like it or not. Okay? This has no prejudice. It tolerates everybody. Whoever it could kill, it'll go after. All right? Where are the spiritual leaders of the Jewish community? I'm concerned with my community. Why aren't the great people yelling, speaking out, Geshrei, call for 1 million people to come to the Kotel, say slichas, ask for mechila, for us, and of course for the world. The Jews experienced plagues in the desert. The 40 years that we roamed around the desert, when the Jews sinned, God sent the Magefa. 20, 30, 50,000 were wiped out in a few days. God was angry. Vayicha af Hashem, God's nostrils were inflamed. Literal translation. Moshe vayispalel, he davened. People did a tshuva, and it went away. Where's our Moshe today? Where's our tshuva today? Where's our crying today? We live in a world of schmutz. Look at the way people dress. Look at the way, sports figures who are idols for the next generation of kids. They're walking rolls of wallpaper. Everybody has a pattern. Everybody has a message. Everybody has some cryptic avodah zarah tattoo on his body. If God wanted you to have wallpaper on your body, he would have wallpapered us. That's defiling the body. It's defiling the dignity of the human being. Buying designer jeans for $300 cutting them up and making holes in conspicuous places, that's degeneration. That's hedonism. It's sick. Where's respect? Where's self-respect? Where's dignity? We have crossed the line. This is not what God expected from the children of Noah, who would have had enough dignity to satisfy God if they did the 7 mitzvahs. This does not satisfy God that we don't do the 613 as a Jewish community. To negate God. There's no God, so there's no morality. You do what you want. You deny what you want. You question what you want. Well, you can't rip down the truth. The truth comes back. I could go on this. I don't like to. People will accuse me, not that I care, of being judgmental. Of course I'm judgmental. The problem is the great leaders aren't speaking out in a judgmental way. How do you let the pig come into the Beit HaMikdash? How do you make morality immoral? The world is upside down. There was a famous folk singer, anti-war during the 1960s, 70s, Bob Dylan. He wrote a song that had the words in it, "We're on the eve of destruction." Now, I don't want to sound like one of these missionary guys who roamed around the Midwest in the 1920s and predicted the end of time, and people look at them like they're quacks, which many of them were, many of them were not. But we're pretty much near the end of the line. Truth be told, with all the schmutz, with all the degeneration, with all the twisting, denying of history, of life, we don't deserve to go on. If we don't stop, there will be no end to the plagues. There will be no Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is symbolic of salvation. People, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Arabs, the whole world is in this. It's not aimed at one race or one people. We all have to rethink our ways. Nach pisod derachenu v'nashuva. Let us check our ways. Let the brave among us come out, deny this, challenge this. Don't let this minority take over the majority thinking of the world from the beginning of time. Remember, there are very few sins. You could eat pig in the Beit HaMikdash, God forbid, on Yom Kippur, and you're not chayav misa for eating on Yom Kippur. But the same level of Vaeyra of this immorality, God calls Toeva, disgusting. It's one of the few sins that are called disgusting for me. God gets disgusted. Shouldn't we? It's not normal to be like this. And I'm not advocating anything violent against these people. It requires love, compassion, and understanding to get them back into mental shape. Let us hope that this plague ends, and ends soon, because the longer we continue down the reckless path that we are going, the more people will die. Is it the 11th plague? I don't know. Who am I to add on a plague? God sent 10, but it was from Mitzrayim, and it was for a purpose, and the purpose was achieved. Now, God was willing to knock out Sodom and Gomorrah, wipe them off the planet. He may be willing to wipe us off the planet and let a new breed start. I don't know. Who am I to figure out what God is doing? I just know, based on Torah, when you do Aveiros of this nature, the consequences are severe. Let us hope that we all begin to see the light and return. The Sheva mitzvahs of the children of Noah, the mitzvahs in the Torah, self-respect and dignity. That is the only vaccine that will work. That is the booster. Shabbat Shalom, Shalom al Yisrael, Briut.